I don't know that I necessarily have something tremendously insightful to contribute to the conversation after Charlie Kirk's expiration, but I got a lot of texts about it when it happened, and one of my kids was calling me. I was actually on the Max riding public transit home with one of my other kids, who then, of course, immediately opened up Twitter. I don't twit, but she still lurks over there. And while I really shouldn't be surprised at the strong binary and the reactions that I was seeing, because that's what so much of social media is right now, very strong binary thinking. That's so much of what our political discourse is like as well. So of course that's going to be reflected in people's reactions to what happened, right? Folks on Twitter were saying things like, oh, if he expires from his injury, then I'm going to start going to church again. And then the subsequent tweets were like, hey, who's meeting me on Sunday? A lot of tweets that were like, hey, well, he is experiencing the consequences of the culture he helped bring about. A lot of people fairly gleeful about what happened. And then, of course, on the other side were people who were pearl clutching a little bit and being like, we must condemn all political violence. Political violence is never acceptable. To which I would say, okay, you think that what, people shouldn't have tried to take out Hitler? Political violence is never acceptable? Again, I'm not saying that it was in this instance. I'm saying that it wasn't in this instance. But at the same time, like a strong binary thinking, this all or nothing, this like extreme condemnation, or like, yippee. The lack of nuance to the reactions on social media is typical. But also, like, come on, y'all, we are more complicated than that. Our feelings around what is happening are actually more complicated than that for most of us. I want to tell you what my initial reaction was, but first I just want to say people using humor, including very dark humor, to process very difficult, harmful, traumatic things that are happening in our society, that's very normal. People memeing this, making jokes about it, I don't actually have a problem with that, because that is how human beings process events like these. Just because somebody makes a joke or posts a meme, I don't think that that is any indication that they are making light of the situation. I think it means they are trying to make sense of it. So my initial reaction was like, I'm not going to miss that motherfucker at all. He has caused tremendous harm. And then I got a text from one of my friends who was like, should I be happy about this? Right, kind of like, I'm not sad about this at all, and maybe I'm a little bit happy. Is that okay? Should I feel guilty about that? My response to that kind of a reaction, or people questioning their own reactions to events like these, is that you should never feel shamed. You should never feel guilt over experiencing relief when a harmful person is no longer able to harm other people. When a cruel, evil, terrible, abusive person is no longer able to abuse people and cause tremendous harm, it is totally normal and acceptable to feel relief. Especially if you are one of the people who was victimized by that person. You are allowed to feel relief that you are now safer. That is very normal. That's very acceptable. Do not let anybody make you feel guilty if your experience after the news today is okay. And yet at the same time, making jokes or memes or not feeling sad, not feeling terrible when a terrible person is no longer on this earth, that doesn't mean that you are condoning political violence. It doesn't mean that you're condoning gun violence. In fact, the people who I've seen experiencing the most relief over this news are people who have advocated for common sense gun reform for a long time. And part of the reason that they feel relief today is because Charlie is somebody who spent years and years working to create a society where gun violence is much more likely to occur, where we absolutely are much more likely to have school shootings. There was a school shooting today, and it's not getting nearly as much coverage as Charlie. He experienced the consequences of working to create a society like the one we are in today. We could say his chickens came home to roost, and at the same time say, hey, political violence is not the way. We also can definitely acknowledge this is not a good scene. My one kid, who's a big Hassan Piker fan, said he was on his stream today being like, guys, this we should not be excited about this. This is not good when rogue individuals think that they have a right to take out people on either end of the political spectrum, right? Because I think Hassan was scheduled to debate Charlie Kirk in like a week and a half. And I don't disagree with him at all, right? This is not the way that we solve problems. This is not the way that we deal with situations like these. And arguably, Charlie already did the greatest amount of harm in the last several years, indoctrinating, brainwashing young men for the alt-right pipeline. Like, so much damage has already been done. So I guess what I'm saying here is that it's okay to have complicated feelings about it. It's okay to say my feelings don't fall into one side or the other of some of the public reactions that we're seeing. This is not good. I think the political right will spin it in a way that's very bad. They will try and use it to take away our, Second Amendment rights. We're already watching the Trump regime trying to trample on and take away the Second Amendment rights of trans folks in this country. I made a video just last night where I was talking about how political violence delegitimizes resistance movements. It turns popular opinion against resistance movements, and it gives the regime an excuse to try to take away more of your rights and to crack down harder. So no, I'm not advocating for there to be copycats, and I'm not advocating or treating this like it's a good thing. But at the same time, I can acknowledge that people feel a sense of relief, and people are not going to mourn somebody like Charlie Kirk. So I guess what I want to say here is that whatever your mix of emotions is, whatever your reactions are, I think that they're perfectly valid. Your personal reactions are your own, the way you process grief or hardship. And I mean the grief of living in 2025 America. I don't mean the grief over Charlie Kirk no longer being among us. But I don't know, maybe you do have grief about that, and that's okay. You're entitled to that. Right? You can have your personal reaction and then still understand the societal and political consequences that may come about because of this. I also want to say it's okay to have your immediate reaction right after events like these happen, and then to think on it for a while and maybe form a more nuanced opinion or see what other information we get. And so I don't want to blame anybody on social media for having their reaction that they're having right now. For me, I'm not sad that he's gone, but I'm deeply sad that we live in a society where it's so easy for people to do this to other people, right? I'm thinking about the fact that if we lived in a United States with sensible gun control, that hundreds and hundreds of children would have lived to see adulthood instead of dying in the halls of their schools. It's okay to feel grief about the circumstances surrounding this, the political climate that created this situation. It's okay to grieve that reality more than you grieve Charlie Kirk. And I think that's pretty much where I'm at. And wherever you're at, I think that's okay too.